The Greeks had a social hierarchy. It started with the slaves, the freedmen, the middle class, and then the higher class. Slaves had no rights. The lower class were farmers, the middle class were shop owners, the higher class were the men that voted and participated in government and whatnot. The Rome hierarchy was much like the Greek, starting with slaves, lower class, middle class, and higher class. The slaves had no rights. They could pay to get out of slavery. It took many years to pay that debt. The freedmen had jobs like craftsmen and traders. They were free from slavery, but they had little rights. Lower class, or ordinary citizens, have to pay taxes. They were usually a shopkeeper. They couldn't have a say in the government. The higher class was the wealthy landowners, senators, and judges. They were descendants of the founding fathers. They had a say on the laws. Ancient Greece and ancient Rome hierarchy was very similar, except in Rome, slaves could pay to get out of slavery. And the upper class had to have jobs in Rome. In Greek, the upper class were allowed to not have jobs and have slaves do all the work. Greek and Roman gods are the same. Romans changed their names, and Ares in the Greek mythology is just simply the god of war, while Mars in the Roman mythology is also the god of many other things. In Rome, he was taught to be a more respected god, while in Greek he was feared for his power and his war lust. The Greeks came first, with their gods being more passive, not as warlike than the Romans. When the Romans adapted it, they changed not too many things besides the names and their personalities. The most common citizen in Rome were slaves. Slaves would do anything their masters say. That includes cleaning their house, tending to the crops, washing the masters. The slaves were basically at the next master's commons until they paid for freedom. Citizen are the soldiers. Rome had a huge, well-organized army. Each day, the Roman soldiers would march during a war. They would build a camp with walls and a moat, and the next day they would take it down and start marching again. When they weren't at war, they were trained for battle the entire time. They always practiced man-to-man and formation. They had to learn how to build roads, forts, and bridges. In Greece, life was very different for men and women. Men were expected to live a public life, participating in voting and social events and whatnot, while women were expected to live a private life as wives and mothers. Greek soldiers were not as organized as Romans. They had to buy their own armor and equipment, though they were more accustomed to fighting at sea. Every time they were in a war, they would always form a battle formation called phalanx. They would stand side by side, overlapping their shields so that they would make a wall. They would march with their shields, with their spears to attack the enemies. Though very different, Greek and Rome were very much alike. They were one of the greatest influencers of the modern world in ancient times, and two of the most powerful ancient armies.